And welcome back to episode 11 of the Say What's podcast. Okay, it is somewhere towards the end of May. It is a first Wednesday, and Storie is 6 weeks old tomorrow. Where the hell has the time gone? We thought we'd just give a quick update on how early parenthood has been for us, because a lot has changed since we last spoke on here, which I think she was 1 or 2 weeks of age. And then next podcast, we'll go back to different topics such as the dilemmas. We've got several things in the pipeline for that. So did you want us to get started? How have you found the last 4 weeks?
Yeah, I feel like we've found our flow the past few weeks. I feel like the first couple of weeks is very like brain fog land. I don't even feel like I remember it.
No.
I feel like her birth was literally yesterday, but also a year ago. Like, it's just a bizarre, like, I feel like all the days roll into one and I don't really remember it. And something that I wanted to say as well, and I'll say it whilst I remember it, is people talk of this like newborn bubble and, you know, you've got to really enjoy it for yourself and, you know, say no to visitors and really embrace this moment and stuff. And I get that, but I think it's very hard to embrace having a newborn bubble. And I thought I would be one of those people that didn't want to have people around, and because we're not people that like to have people around all the time. No. But I actually feel that in those first, especially 4 weeks, we had more people around than ever, didn't we?
Yeah, we'd even planned before, like, guys, we probably won't see you for a month. Everyone's like, look, take as long as you need. And then pretty much from the first or second day, people were around just
from choice. From us saying and wanting them around.
We were like, oh, if you're nipping by, just nip in and just...
I feel like that's really helped us.
Yeah.
Because we're not the kind of people who are really sociable. Like, we have my mum lives around the corner, so my mum's around a lot. But we're not the kind of people who like to have people around the house all the time, just because we very much value our own space, don't we?
Yeah, I feel like it just felt very family orientated.
It did. It felt like we'd all had a baby.
Yeah, the grandparents, our great grandparents, everyone was just, you know, just around and enjoying family time.
Yeah, I'd go on. Talking over you already.
And I think it was like, rather than us both, I don't know, it didn't feel right for us both to be like, because I know you started coming back onto Instagram after several days or a week or so to get back into some normality. Because yes, I mean, I guess you should do whatever feels right for you. No one can really say, look, you should do this and don't.
Well, this is a typical Alex Hormozy.
You should do whatever you feel like you should do. Not this is the way it should go. And for us, it felt like... it felt nicer to see people around, people having cups of tea and coffee and all having a chat, and it felt very close. And also, as much as we're spending like obviously 24 hours a day with Storie, rather than us literally like, oh, well, should you go and post on Instagram? I was like, yeah, sure, I'll watch Storie for a couple of hours. You go and get into your routine. And then it felt like it was, I don't know, the saying, filling your cup up.
Yeah.
Giving, not a break, but like, it just didn't feel quite right for us both to be sat on a sofa staring at Storie.
No, and that's what I thought the newborn bubble was going to be. And I think actually there's a lot of pressure around. I don't know whether anybody else ever felt like this. We had planned for that though.
We had planned for us to literally be sat there staring at Storie.
And I actually had anxiety thinking that, oh my God, how am I going to break it to my mum that I do need a few days to myself? Because, you know, my mum is a very like hands-on, and I know how much she cares and wants to be like around us in general. But now, you know, the baby as well. I'll keep saying the baby. She's called Storie. But I was thinking, I've got anxiety of how to say to my mum, look, mum, we're probably going to want like a good, you know, few days a week to ourselves. And she would have been absolutely fine with that. But it actually was giving me anxiety thinking, oh my God, what if people want to come round straight away, or even a few days after we're not ready? But actually, probably more than ever in my life, I actually wanted people around us more than ever. And I know a lot of people aren't like that. They really just like to be by themselves and stuff, but I really appreciated that, and I think it really helped because one, I was obviously recovering.
Yes, that
I was
helped
in a lot of
with me because
I was in a lot of pain, so a lot of the physical was on you.
Yeah. Also, I was very anxious, as mentioned in the last podcast, about your health. And when other people were around, it felt like
less
if
pressure.
Something went wrong, we were all in it together to get you to the hospital, whatever. I was obviously thinking worst case, but there's so much craziness going in my head at the time. I was like level 99 anxiety for 2 weeks solid after, even when I was doing the podcast. Now I'm completely relaxed. I look back at how I felt even then. I was still in that state. I don't think you really realise
until you're
out of the state, like, oh shit, I was actually...
I agree.
Because I remembered even times like when Tay was playing with Storie and she would make noises and shout. I was associating that with thinking, shit, she's shouting for help, she's in pain, or she's whatever, rather than like, oh, she's playing with Storie. And I was like, this is just taking its toll on me. Ever since then, though, so back to the point, long way around the point. It felt for me more comfortable to have friends and family around, and
for me too.
It just felt really, really nice actually. So obviously,
everyone's newborn bubble's different, but I wouldn't say ours was necessarily what I assumed it was going to be, where I thought, you have this newborn bubble, nobody comes around, you sit and you stare at them, you go on the sofa, you watch telly with them, you just look at them all day. Ours was very much like, okay, like how do we go from this really big change that's just happened, all of this kind of thing that's happened with the birth, like how do we actually, ours was more like, how do we get a sense of normality? I feel like that was as more than how do we sit and appreciate this baby on our own by ourselves in a newborn bubble.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really benefited us, having people around so that it didn't start to feel really weird when people did come round. Me getting back to doing my bits on Instagram that make me feel like me, that I really enjoy. For me, Instagram isn't work. It's like a part of who I am, and having that time for myself to like do my bathroom stories that I've been doing and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really, really helped my mental health. And it's also made me, I think, take all of this more in my stride than,
do you know
what I mean? Taking time away and then having that pressure of like, oh, I've got to come back now. And how do I do this? This doesn't feel natural.
Yeah,
it felt natural for me to do
I
that.
would say, like, obviously it's the biggest change you'll ever go through in your life. Well, probably one of. But then to add in a non-normal routine makes it 10 times worse. Like,
we're very routine people.
You stick to your routine, you add the baby in or Storie in, and then
keep calling it the baby.
Storie is her. You work around her routine first, and then you think, okay, here's some, like we've learned this over the last 6 weeks. Like, here we can slot in some more of our routine. Like, it's a slot in the gym. We can slot in going to get a coffee. Slot in. Obviously work, like all of these kind of things around her routine, and rather than...
And that's what you don't get in the beginning, because you don't know what the routine is, so you lose all of that.
Yeah,
but then
100%.
After I'd say like a week and a half, 2 weeks, then you start to go, oh, she's asleep now for this 3 hours, and I know that because that's how long she kind of sleeps for. So this is my time now to go and do whatever I want to do, and then you prioritize what you want to do. Like for you, it's right, I'm going to go and get in the gym, and I'm like, right, I'm going to go and get in my bathroom and do some makeup stories or skincare reviews and stuff that I really enjoy and that make me feel like me.
And I would also say, like, because we both work from home and I don't have an office here, it's like all these little challenges are things you just sort of like, it just takes you several weeks. So I'm like trying to do some work, and then it's so easy for you to be like, oh, can you just grab Storie for a minute? Or your mum will come round and go, oh, Jack, can you just help me with this for a minute? And you're like, I'm never ever going to get anything done ever again. Whereas I think if I had an office to go to, I'd be like, right, I'm at my office.
Till you can't bug me.
And I would come back. So I've been finding that sort of like tricky, but then you just sort of navigate around it, like we said, and then we just communicate and go, okay, these hours I need, I'm going in the living room, give me 3 hours to crack on with this, and then it just sort of goes like that. Whereas at the start, it's like everything's in the air. You're like, everything. I don't know how we're ever going to get a routine. You're not getting much sleep. You're both up as soon as she's like making a slight noise.
Yeah, because I remember in those first, again, I want to say like 2 weeks, but maybe even a week and a half. In that first week and a half, I remember going in the shower and washing my hair, washing my body at the speed of the light, thinking, I've got to get out. because she's awake and what am I going to do? You know,
Yeah.
she was in a safe spot, but I was like, I've got to get out in case she starts crying again.
Can you watch her because I'm having a shower? So we would both be like literally.
And you'd be like panicking like in the shower. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to have a normal shower again. And now I'm back to enjoying my showers as I was pre-pregnancy, because you just learn, right, she's down now. She's asleep. So this is my time. I've probably got 3 hours, and it almost feels like a cheat to like parenthood, where you're like, wow, like I can go and get these things that I write a to-do list the night before, what I want to do tomorrow. Like I just have to brain dump, just literally have so many notes on my phone. And so like as soon as she's asleep and has that first like segment of sleep in the morning, I will start to work through my to-do list. And obviously the first thing is like have a shower, get ready. And it's nothing like that first couple of weeks where you're like, shit, like this is what am I going to do? And I mean, this is just obviously from our personal experience. It might be different for the people that can't get their babies to sleep, can't get into that kind of like chunk of sleep, or single parents or things like that. But that's how it's worked for us. So it has really, really changed over the last few weeks. And I feel like as much as there are times where it's hard and it's challenging and everything, I feel like we're getting into a nice, not a routine, but a flow. And we understand each other now.
100%. At the start, I would say from the second week to the 6th week, like there's different levels. It's a bit like when you have a partner and you meet a partner and you think you're in love and you don't think it can get any higher. And then, you know, a couple of years later it gets higher, and then you go through these different periods in your life, and then it gets higher, and then you get like married, it goes higher, then you have a baby and you see them being a mum and it gets higher, and you think, oh, it can't get like that. And I think that's definitely the case with the first 2 weeks of Storie. Like when she first came here, like seeing her enter the earth, like my whole emotions like exploded.
Yeah.
And then I was like anxious for the first 2 weeks. I was in like serve and protect mode. It was just like, how do we get past this? And then when you relax, it's like full bonding mode. So then it's like, oh, I get to know her. She gets to know me. Like now she's even starting to smile
a lot.
So when I like come into the room and say hello, she smiles, and you're like, oh my God, like level 99 happiness, it like melts you. So all of these things come after, and I guess they come at different stages for people. Maybe people have bonded day one, maybe bonded 4 weeks. It's very
on that note, let's talk about that, because we've both discussed this, and I think we're both kind of keeping it to ourselves a little bit, and now we're a bit more open with it. But like I had noticed actually in the first couple of weeks that Jack wasn't necessarily doing what I'd imagined or reacting how I thought he would in my head with Storie. I didn't tell you this till a few days ago, did I?
She said,
but I could see it, but I knew that it was very much down to the trauma that from birth and worrying and panicking, like you said, about me, like just constant health worries.
Yeah.
And how I assumed Jack would be like cooing over and stuff, it just wasn't that. It was very autopilot, like doing what I've got to do, but there wasn't that kind of...
It wasn't the bond.
No.
I think
I think this is going to be, I think this is one of those things that's going to be very common when you say this. I think there's going to be a lot of people who say the same.
I don't know for a fact of where this come. I don't know whether it's come from me being traumatized about the birth, and then Tay's health not being right for 2 weeks, and that giving me like level 99 anxiety, because every day, like when Tay was making noises with Storie and she was like like woo or whatever, I could hear it downstairs.
There was one time where you ran up the stairs and
I thought
you were bleeding.
Yeah,
I thought you were bleeding.
I was like,
she was
screaming for help, because there was a couple of times within those weeks where she did scream when you were clotting. So now, like, I'd associated, like, if a scream, it's that. So it was like, you don't realise, I even on like the last podcast when I'd said like, oh yeah, I had a bit of trauma or whatever, that looking back now, I was like, it was definitely for a couple of weeks where, I don't like to use the word trauma because that sounds like serious, but I would say like I was in an anxious state.
But it was serious. That's like you trying to diminish your feelings about it.
Yeah.
It was traumatizing for you.
And I feel that now looking back, and then obviously Storie was here as well. So I was just literally doing everything like rigid, like what does she need? Okay, do this, do that. And everything with it. But then I'd also say, I may have felt the same way anyway, taking away the stress or anxiety of you not being well, I still feel like the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it probably takes someone, it's like there is no bonding time. It's like, let's keep this baby alive time. Yeah. And everything is scary. Everything is anxious. I'm Googling everything. Like everything. Even now, like, you know, I'm learning pretty much every day, and thank everyone on Instagram, because every time I post something on Instagram, everyone's like, by the way, you're overheating your baby. And I'm like, shit, thank you very much. So no, I do appreciate all of that. And that's 6 weeks in. I think I'll be learning 6 months in, forever.
We're all just winging it.
So it's, and literally, I actually think I probably should have done more research before she was here. Do you know what I mean? I think I was heavily leaning on you for that. I was like, oh, Taylor know what she's doing. But then you realise that actually I spend 50% of the time with her, so I think
you just learn. I think the best way to learn is through experience, to be honest.
Yeah. I would say like the bonding stage gets more and more every single day, and now like she's laughing, she recognises me having that bond. It's like and I'm now feeling like how I imagined myself being a father with my daughter.
Yeah. At first you said that you felt like she was just a baby.
I felt like she was just a baby. It was plonked on my lap. Everyone was like, right, you know what to do. You got to love her level 99. Get on with it. And I'm like, and then also you're not well. I was like, oh man, this is all just overwhelming. Yeah. Maybe other people just take it in the stride and just,
well, for me as well, you hear this, oh my God, as soon as you lay eyes on them, you're going to feel this really overwhelming love, and it's this and it's that, and there's not an experience like it. And there's definitely not an experience like it. Like I remember looking at her, and there's even a part of the video on one of our reels on Instagram, and I'm like, oh my God. And you can just see like the overwhelm in my like eyes, but also like my whole body at this time of birth was literally numb. I couldn't pick her up properly. I couldn't rest her on me. I was just like, oh my God. Like I was said to Jack, like, you have to take her, because I was scared I was going to drop her because I couldn't feel it. I had an epidural and a forceps delivery. And I just couldn't feel her. I couldn't have really had her on me. So there was no chance for that real like connecting moment. And then obviously went into the recovery, then went straight back into theatre. And I think for me, as much as there was like an overwhelming maternal instinct and like, oh my God, she's here and my baby, and I, loved her, that real like love for me has come in the last couple of weeks, where I feel like I know this person.
Yeah,
I
it's
know
a special
her.
bond. It's the
like
build
how some people obviously do, but in my head I can rationalize it like, well, how can you love something you don't know? How can you love somebody you don't know? So for me, I wouldn't say there was that like overwhelming love. There was an overwhelming like feeling.
Oh, she's crying.
Yeah. So yeah, as much as for me there was this overwhelming feeling of like love and overwhelm and like, oh my God, wow, this is my baby, like, and I was doing, and also an overwhelming maternal instinct, like, wow, I've got to look after her now, and I want to protect her at all costs, and got to be careful with her and everything. I feel like for me the love and that overwhelming love has really come and is coming even more in the last few weeks, where I feel like, oh my God, I just love her. Like I say to you all the time, I just love her, like I just want to see her. Like I wake up and I'm like, whereas first it was like, you'd be waking up in the night and you'd be like, God, like I've got to get up again. And now it's more like, I don't know, it's just more relaxed. And I just want to, if other people feel like this, which I'm sure they do, kind of normalize not necessarily having that super overwhelming like love at first sight feeling, because as much as there was that like I said, maternal instinct, for me the love has grown. Yeah,
I get that, because everyone I spoke to is like, it's literally the best thing you'll ever have in your life. As soon as you see them, you'll love them, like you'll die for them, you'll do all of these kind of things. And then it can possibly make you feel a little bit guilty if you're not feeling like, that way. Oh, I've not connected. And the midwives say like, the fathers get skin to skin, get that bonding, and all of that stuff helps. Like when I was laying with her, like, well, not necessarily watching footy, but watching anything, and she was laying on me, and she's asleep, and you're looking at it, it builds the bond, and you're like, oh, I love her, and then you're like, oh, can I do that again? I do that, and it just builds. Yeah, I mean, it builds. There's levels to everything, and the levels just gets higher and higher and higher. So if you do ever feel like that, would you say it's normal, or would you just say we felt like that as well?
No, I think
Could be normal. I don't know. What is normal?
There isn't a normal.
There isn't a normal.
Because everyone is just so different. But I think it's important to share our experience, because you would think, well, a lot of people assume, and maybe especially if you don't have children, that, you know, these people had IVF. Of course, they're going to feel this overwhelming, overpowering, love at first sight feeling. And for us, it still has been that process where it's a build love, because, you know, I feel like, wow, I didn't know this person. Now I know this person. I love this person, and this person is, you know, our child, and it's amazing. And it really, now I can really understand when people say like it is the best feeling in the world, because now, I'm like, so I get it now.
When people say, and you can tell it's just going to get better and better, because already, like, she's kind of smiling, and like, you're like, it can't get any better than this.
No, you're like,
but
this
then
is
you know
person.
She's going to laugh, and then she's going to, and I would say, like, what would you say some of the, it's quite funny, is normally I'm very particular, like, with my, like, clothes, you know, I don't want any shit on them. I don't want like any marks on them. I want them ironed, the crisp.
And sometimes I go to put my hand on Jack's back. Jack's
don't
like this.
touch
He's
me.
Like,
don't get makeup on me.
Don't crease my t-shirt.
Don't get any makeup. Don't hug me. And then when you have a baby, and obviously you're like lumping them over your shoulder, and they like might be sick, or they might like, you just go out unironed. There's no point ironing anything, because you're constantly picking them up. And I've noticed, and it feels great. I feel at peace. Just
feel liberated.
Going out. And I had like, to be fair, it wasn't even Storie, was it? I ate a tomato, and the whole tomato went all over me. But because I had Storie, I was like, yes, you know, she's a messy, isn't she? All over me. And you can just blame it on the baby. And I just feel like you just feel more like a dad.
I feel more like an
adult. That's in my own
adult.
head, because I don't think people give a shit whether you got something on your top or not. But I'm so like,
yeah, it's definitely a you thing.
Or ironed. Do you know what I mean? No, normally like, okay, like, but the whole thing is just creasy. It's messy, and you got on it, and I just love that. And
one of the things that I feel about Storie is I almost feel like she's a bit of a safety blanket as well.
Yeah, this
like
is
going out with her.
I mean.
Like, even if I was on my own, even though I've not actually been on my own without you, out.
Yeah.
At my mum's house or something, yeah, but not out in the world without you. But I feel like she's like a safety blanket where I just feel less.
That's what I mean. Like, everything becomes irrelevant.
Everything feels you've got more. A baby. I can't explain it, but just even think we're doing more things that I feel like we've been out more
ever
in this last 6 weeks than we've been out since we've lived back in the UK.
It's really
you want to get out.
Everything becomes enjoyable. Like, you go out for breakfast with Storie, and you're like, this is the best so much better I've ever had.
Yeah, something as simple as going out for breakfast now feels like this really exciting thing, because it's almost like you don't know what's coming, and they're going to sit there, and they're going to be there.
Yeah, and just to see her, and you're like, she's in this restaurant. Look at her.
She's not in the house, and she's got dressed up.
We took her swimming, and like, she's swimming, she's in water.
Her in the pool was just everything. I'm literally craving doing that. But yeah, I just feel like everything that, like, I feel like we're kind of people who really enjoy the simple things anyway. But I feel like with her, everything is just so much more special. And it's like there's a first of everything. It's like you're doing all of these things for the first time again, because you're doing them with her.
100%. And I would say that the last 5 years or so, there's 100% something missing. Like, the next stage, I know life is in different seasons. You have like your school season, and then your first season going out, and all of these different seasons. And ours has been delayed, I would say, in the season that we've wanted to have a family
for a very long time.
And it's like we've been missing something. And then when she comes in, the family life, I just love the family life. I mean, I've been waiting for the family life, and now the family life is what I expected the family life to be. And it just feels great to do everything with Storie, or
and
with
it's thinking
us as
of
a
all
family.
the future things to come, like, you know, taking her back to Marbella, to our apartment there, in case you're new here. Like taking her back there and swimming with her there, and taking her to the beach, and taking her to restaurant. It's just fun.
Yeah, and I see why. Like, I've seen like parents on Instagram, and they never post anything about themselves. Just every day is their child.
I have to refrain myself.
They're obviously absolutely buzzing, and after a while you're like,
I post
something else.
about 50 pictures of Storie a day on my close friends list, just to get that kind of like thing out of my system of like wanting to post everything on my stories, because people will be like, okay, right, we get it, we love Storie, but like enough is enough. So I have to get it out of my system by putting them on my close friends.
Exactly. Even like after this podcast, we will do more normal topics, because we could easily just keep doing like a 7-week one of Storie.
Should we talk about Storie again?
So
and do you know what's
this,
so funny as well? I heard people say this, that when they're not with their children, all they do is think about their children. So I can't remember what it was. My mum had Storie the other day for a few hours, and the whole time that my mum had her, I was just literally going through my photos on my phone and looking at photos of her. And as soon as she gets into bed at night, I'm going through the photos of the day and oh, I love that one. Oh, look at this chat. Look at this. Literally, all I want to do is stare at photos of her. When you're not with her, I'm like, sometimes, I mean, not all the time, because sometimes you're like, oh, thank God she's gone to sleep now. I can go and get some stuff done. But sometimes I'm like, okay, you just need to wake up now, because I want to play.
Well, I went to a friend's wedding party. Normally I'd be like, it was an all day and night thing. Normally I would be drinking, it's my like bread and butter. That I love it in the sun. I didn't drink because I didn't want to miss or be hungover a Storie. And then when I went to the party, instead of being with my friends smashed on the dance floor, I was with all the women chatting about babies. Storie. And I was literally just with everyone like, yeah, and then she does this, and then like, and I was like, yeah. And then I came home and thought, fucking hell, I've changed, didn't I? But I really, really enjoyed it. So, I would say it's going as well as it could be. We're lucky and blessed that we've got our friends and family that live really close, so they're coming over, like we said. And
so, there's challenges in it all, but it is amazing. And I think people say it just gets better and better, and I really feel that and see that now. But at the same time, I'm also like, please, time needs to stop or slow down a little bit, because soon enough she's actually not even going to be a baby, and that is heartbreaking, because I feel like we've only just got her.
I find it crazy, and this is why I would love to keep doing podcasts and things. What I think we'll probably do is do some more YouTube videos rather than the podcast, and that'll be more family life.
And we can show more family life.
We can show more family life, what's going on. We can film like whilst we're going out, and then the podcast can go back to Gigi dilemmas and all of those kind of things, which we love doing.
But this is us right now. And, we have just transitioned from normal people into parents, and I think a lot of the Gigi love being a part of that, because a lot of the Gigi are from 25 to 36 year olds. That's like my highest statistic on my Instagram. Like that's the majority of the women, and I think a lot of women have babies.
100%.
Or are wanting babies or are manifesting babies. So I think it's a big part of all of us. But anyway, guys, we'll wrap that up here. That was a little bit of a 6-week recap. And do you know what? This will be really nice to look back on one day as well.
That was my point. I was going to say a point. I'm so glad that we've vlogged as much as we possibly can, and that you're so active on Instagram and things like that, because like I've looked back at some of the videos when we first found out that the embryo had matched, and our reaction, and then when the embryo was implanted and we didn't know what was going to happen, like is it going to stick, is it going to do all those things. That just seems like a week ago, yet that's like a year ago. So now she's 6 weeks old.
Yeah, and mums say to me all the time on Instagram, blink, and there'll be like 1, 2, 3, like no idea where the time's gone, and that is very sad. I feel like time's going that way anyway. Even without a child, it just goes so fast. But hope you've enjoyed the recap, and we will be back with some GG dilemmas in the next podcast, which I'm very excited for.
Yeah,
bye guys, love you.
Take care. Bye.